big changes are on their way to Call of Dragons, which includes updates about the pet system, about resetting artifacts, about resetting heroes, and more. So stick around in this video for everything you need to know about the developer Q&A just launched in October. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Call of Dragons, and you'll have to pardon the fact that I'm definitely losing my voice, but we have got to talk about this Q&A because I think it hits on some really important changes that are potentially on their way to Call of Dragons. Now I do need to remind you, this is a Q&A, not a patch note, and that is important to differentiate. So this tells us what the developers are thinking, gives us a chance to react as a community, and then hopefully developers hear that feedback and make some more adjustments before the sort of final versions hit the game. So let's get a look here at the first question. When you begin Season 2, there's a lot of repetitive work that has to be done, upgrading heroes and artifacts and playing through the Dragon Trail, and Alliance leaders and officers have to spend a lot of time and effort rebuilding their alliances. Are there plans to optimize the season reset in the future? Let me tell you, with the design of the game, it is like 10 to 100x the effort. I'm not even kidding you, of what it is in Rise of Kingdoms for a leader. So this sort of leaders and officers thing is so true. And about the Dragon Trail, I mean, I did it the first time. I'm pretty good with how that went. I don't feel the need to do that ever again, basically. But you have to do it every season, and you have to do it aggressively, like very aggressively. And it's not exactly not fun. It's just, as they said here, it's repetitive, right? So what did the developer say? With each season reset, we pay great attention to feedback from players and use it to assess the long-term impact of season resets on the game. With this in mind, we're making improvements to season resets centered around two aspects: personal development and alliances. So with regard to personal development, in order to speed up the early game development and make PvE and Warpet gameplay more rewarding, we're considering changing to partial resets for hero levels, not resetting artifact levels at all, and ceasing the scrapping of arcane dust. We're also planning to increase the level cap for Darklings, Dark Creatures, Dark Forts, and their corresponding rewards. Furthermore, when fighting in PvE, all players receive full experience, rather than the old system, where experience was granted according to the amount of damage dealt. In the late season, higher level war pets will respawn more frequently. Now, I just want to talk about this first bit, although there's so much more to talk about here. So let's break this down. First of all, partial resets on heroes is a great idea. Feels weird to me that I unlocked or awakened the hero, and now they only have one skill again. I think once you sort of get all the skills unlocked and they're awakened, they should stay awakened, my opinion. All right. With regard to the artifacts, I think this is really good that they're not resetting them. I gave feedback to the developers where I basically said, hey guys, I don't know if you've thought about this yet, but I can only have 5 artifacts in the open field at a time. And at the start of the game, because you're limited for resourcing your levels and also leveling your artifacts, you have to pick and choose basically just the 5 artifacts you use all the time, and you rarely swap in other ones. So like you've got these, like really amazing focused artifacts that do cool things that you never really get to use because you're never going to level them up. And you should just stick with the 5 artifacts that you work on as your main fighting sort of artifacts for the season. And eventually you may go back at this sort of midpoint toward the end of the season before the final fights and level up a few more artifacts, right? And I said this is problematic because, first of all, we don't get to enjoy all these really cool artifacts. Second of all, you guys realize that as a spender, there's no way for me to justify spending on other artifacts because I don't need them. Like, I can only have 5 anyways. I'm not going to be able to level them all up anyways. So, it's a lose-lose situation is what I'm trying to say. The sort of limitations of resetting artifacts. And I love that they're like, all right, we're just not going to reset them anymore. And that, to me, feels like a pretty good solution. I do worry a little bit about how balanced is that at the sort of start of a season. Artifacts are going to be really insane. But I think that's a much better situation than sort of where it is today, where it's like, you got your 5 artifacts and then everything else is just sort of irrelevant to you. Also, I really, 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 really like that players receive experience in full, rather than the old system where experience was granted according to the amount of damage dealt. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that like if you and someone else hit the same target, you would get less experience. And that just seemed like such a fat L. And the reason is that like these games are all about community, like 100% about community. And I passed along the feedback that like, hey guys, the issue with the splitting of experience or reduction of experience is it discourages teamwork. Not only does it discourage teamwork, but you basically have people who don't understand they're losing experience screwing over the people who know they're losing experience. So you've got people getting frustrated at each other. They're like, bro, what the heck are you doing attacking my Darkling? And other people are like, why wouldn't I attack your Darkling? What's the problem? So this, I think, would solve that and encourage teamwork. And I love that they actually increase the level cap of the Darklings. I actually will go kind of one step further here. And I'll say that I don't think there should be lower level Darklings at all. I think there should only be max level Darklings. And in a worst case, you just work as a team to take them down. And the level of the Darklings all throughout the map should go up as the season advances. And the reason I think this is important, and I think this should be true for pets, I think this should be true for literally every Darkling and every dark creature. The global level of all dark things should just go up throughout the season. Why do I think that? Because you need to kind of spend a lot of time running around if you want to be efficient, fighting only the max level Darklings, capturing only the max level war pets, fighting only the max level dark creatures. Bro, how many hours a day should I be running around to be efficient? I think, in addition to sort of reducing the burden, one other consideration would be, again, sort of a global level of all of the dark things so that you don't have to like spend a bunch of time running all over the map to find a max level, pet. They're just all over the place, right? The difference is that some people will now have to spend time, a lot more time, compared to what I'm proposing, where you don't have to spend as much time running all over the place to find, the thing that you wanted, right? So I think that would be a nice change as well. But this is honestly a phenomenal set of changes, especially seeing that higher level war pets will spawn more frequently. Again, I think the point of the game is not to make people walk all over the place. So if you wanted to reduce the extent to which that happens, set all the levels of the Darklings, dark creatures, and everything globally throughout the map and have it just go up throughout the season. My 2 cents. From here, and to deepen strategic gameplay, we are designing a policy system that will change as the season progresses. So this to me is kind of weird. To deepen your strategic gameplay, to me that says we're going to have some choices perhaps around, do you want to move faster or do more counterattack or do more skill damage, or maybe it's unit type buffs? I'm a little bit lukewarm and anxious personally about policies, just because there's a risk that moves too much in the direction of sort of, like crystal technology from Rise of Kingdoms. But my hope is that this is giving you ways to specialize, and it gives you ways to specialize without making you irrelevant in certain activities. In other words, I don't think it would be good if you have to choose between open fielding and rally leading. Like, I think that's a bad thing to have to decide between. But if there's, ways that you're able to sort of specialize without limiting your ability to do things in the game, I think that could be fine. What's more, your Dragon Trail progress will no longer be reset when a new season begins, thank God. Although, they will be adding new stages that will allow players to pursue higher goals when a new season starts. I think that's fine. I think that's fine. That sounds like a improvement to me. So all of this so far sounds actually really good. Like really, really good direction for the game. As we continue on, alliances. We are currently debating the feasibility of retaining alliances from previous seasons. At the moment, we can confirm that in the late season, we will allow alliance leaders to select their starting region for the new season. Once this choice is made, alliance members will automatically follow their alliance leader to the new season's map. We're also considering solutions regarding alliance membership numbers in the early season. So let me pause here for a moment and cover these things. I'm not even kidding when I say that the amount of effort is exponentially higher in Call of Dragons for your leaders. And one of the many factors contributing to that is the fact that your alliance starts small and you have to build it up. And I think that needs to change. If you want leaders to like maintain their sanity, and I'm not even kidding, I've lost my sanity. So what I'm trying to say is that in Rise of Kingdoms, you enter KVK and your shell starts at 150 members, which was the same, or 155, whatever it was in your home kingdom, it is in KVK, right? Whereas here, you finish the season with 180, and then you start your new season, and it's like, what is it, 75, 100, something like that? Like a small number, right? So that creates an obvious logistic nightmare. And by nightmare, I do mean nightmare. And so what is that nightmare? The logistics nightmare is that you need to have separate officers go to a separate shell. In that separate shell, they have to manage all these members, and then they need to cycle members over to the main shell periodically. But remember, when you leave shells, there's a 24-hour window where you can't teleport again, right? So you got to manage all this, and then people are, want to get over to the main shell, but they're bored because they're sitting in an off shell, and then the bigger the main shell gets, the more bored the off shell gets because it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller to the point of irrelevance. Then those players, if they continue to play the game, maybe they won't, maybe they will, eventually make it into the main shell how many days and weeks later, right? So what I'm trying to say is like, it's actually from a player standpoint, something that really needs addressing. And I think there's I've been thinking a lot about like, what should Call of Dragons really be doing? And personally, I think the game needs to move in the direction, instead of having you sort of live with a home server, you form an expedition team. Think about how Season 2 started. You go on an expedition, right? So you should form an expedition team. That expedition team is kind of like your home kingdom. And whatever that sort of size is, I think it should be 2 unions. Sorry, 1 union, 2 alliances, right? And you bring all those players into a zone together, right? So they touch on this a little bit when they're like, oh yeah, your alliance leader can pick your starting zone, which is good because like people were getting absolutely raffle stomped not knowing what starting zone to pick. And like, okay, it's the most disorganized people that are like not picking the right starting zones, and it's the most disorganized alliances that are getting punished, but still that kind of sucks, right? So in my opinion, you basically have these expedition teams, is what it should be. They queue up for a season together, and then each expedition team gets a starting zone. One way to run it, and if but there's a lot of thought that needs to go into that, and I'm derailing a little bit. Point is, I think they need to look at this. I think it really needs to be like, an alliance is 150 members. What is the community size? An alliance is 150 members? Great. In a new season, you should have 150 members in the alliance. It's just, please save us the astronomic hundreds of hours of headache of shifting people between alliances, please. We're sure that you have plenty of questions regarding these changes, such as the specifics of hero resets, increasing the PvE level caps, the number of Dragon Trail stages, how to gain prestige, and other concerns. We're highly aware that any changes will make irreversible impact on how players progress over their 70-day season. So we're going to need a little more time to test and refine these changes to iron out any issues that may arise. We'll update you with any further details once the final plans have been decided. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that these are like 70-day seasons. There's 2 thoughts I have on this. One is that if you lose a season, 70 days is kind of a long time to be a loser, if that makes sense. So people enter, and on day 1, they feel like they've already lost, and they're stuck there for 70 days. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that, like, I feel like a part of what needs to happen for the game and the health of the game is that either the game moves in the direction, as I was describing, of having a union worth of players called an expedition queue up, and then you can kind of compare the strength of the expedition teams, and they each get a starting zone, and now you've got a fair new world to go explore with equally powered starting zones. Or the way it stands today, people resurge, form a super team, then that one team wins the season, and everybody's bored all season, and they're sitting there for 70 days, either as a loser or a winner, with the only thing to do is drama as opposed to sort of constructive team-based fighting. And that's a long time, again, to live a season as a loser. So I feel like making it so that the sort of teams are more balanced, or even just generally reducing the season length, but having more seasons would be a huge, huge win. My 2 cents on that one. I get that that means more resets, but resets, if you look at the level of engagement of players, it's the highest at a reset. So doing that more frequently presumably gets people reinvigorated with the game. My 2 cents. So will it be possible to see the start times of the different phases of the late season, such as the season summary, migration, matchmaking, and beginning of the new season? In version 20, we've added a timeline for the late season. This is really good, giving players clarity when they're making their future plans. This is a big one. Will cross-server migration be introduced? Considering the differences in strength between players in Season 1, 2, and 3, we're currently not planning to add the ability to migrate between servers that are in different seasons. I actually think that's a good change, or a good stance to have. We are considering adding a cross-season migration after Season 3 ends, but this plan is still in the early stages. We welcome any feedback players may have regarding server migration. I think that server migration is obviously a balance. The balance is that if endgame players can only ever fight the most endgame players, then there's this like sort of weirdness where there's only attrition and the same people fight each other over and over and over and maybe get bored. On the flip side of things, if players can migrate back to a younger group, then their account is relatively overpowered. You create a situation where the new players are getting kind of screwed over by the older players. So I don't know exactly what the answer is. We know that Rise of Kingdoms has experienced this to some extent, where migrating back to the youngest possible kingdom you can gives you just an astronomical advantage and really bullies the new players to the game. So I don't know what the answer is, but it does sort of make sense that at some point there's a cutoff, and when you reach that cutoff, you're playing with everybody else. And like, the problem is that if you do that, you still have young accounts and old accounts, and the very youngest accounts that just hit the cutoff shouldn't be fighting the very oldest accounts that have been there for a really long time. And there's not an easy answer for that one. The best thing that I can come up with, as I've described, is the sort of expedition-based queuing system where, like, you know, you've formed your union. We can see the strength of your union. They could even look at the sort of commander and artifact depth of the groups if they wanted to for matchmaking and make some choices about who should be fighting who. And I think I'm not trying to be hard stuck on that suggestion, but I do think it's not a bad one. But it needs a lot of thought around it to actually make it run. Will we be able to choose the skill slots we want to add to war pets? Let me tell you, I literally have a war pet. I'll show you. I will show you the pet. So this here is my sand lizard. Very happy with it. I should rename it Lizzie, the sand lizard. Haven't done that yet. I guess I need to get my reputation higher with Lizzie first. But I have 8 slots here. I tried to unlock one of these slots. You see, skill assignment is random. And I believe there was a video at one point that broadcast that like your chances were higher of landing on one of the empty slots. I think the opposite is true. Your chances are higher of landing on an existing slot. So I did literally over 30 skill applications onto this pet. I'm not even kidding you. 30 skill applications to try to get one of these slots to have a skill go there, and they all failed. I want to communicate that again. I did 30 plus skill applications, and every single time it overwrote one of these existing skills instead of going to the new slot. This system to me is, I mean, like, look, if I wanted this system to be really fun, you would pick and choose where things go. It's like that simple. You pick and choose where things go and make the cost of things cost more if that's what it needs to be. But the randomness is like slaying me. I'm getting absolutely decimated a lot of the time. And like sometimes it works out, but like, let me give you an example. I have this frost bear, right? Well, so hold up. What I want to do is upgrade to a higher star level of Counter-Strike. Well, to do that, I need to play RNG until it lands here or it lands somewhere else. And then I apply other skills until it lands on this one and replaces it. Like, I feel like every system of the game should be designed with fun in mind, and the randomness of this system has really, I think, undermined the extent to which it could be so fun. And I wonder the extent to which it's understood sort of the depth to which the randomness here is undermining the ways in which this system is just crazy fun. Because there's a lot of like I love about the pet system, except the skills. That's like the one thing that like destroys me every time I try to do it. So they say we are not planning to make changes to how war pet skills are learned. Currently, each time you learn a war pet skill, it will randomly replace an existing skill. If an empty skill slot is available, there's a chance that it may be used instead. However, we've discovered the existing war pet skills page does not explain this clearly. That is an understatement. We have made some improvements in the next update. Keep an eye out for the improvements. Yeah. I mean, if I'm gonna big Gamba, which it turns out it is, like, at least it feels like big Gamba on the skill slots, like, at least tell me my odds. Like, what are my odds of getting this new skill slot? So, my impression is that it's equally even chances of landing on any of the existing places where you have a skill, but there's like an itty bitty baby chance, like I don't know what percent, for landing on one of the available unused skill slots. I really think this is not an issue of knowledge of how the system works. If I could wave a magic wand, I would recommend like an overhaul, honestly, of like overhaul this so that it's fun. My 2 cents. I'm sure some people do find, well, do some people find the randomness fun? I'm really not sure. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think this is worth reevaluating personally. Will you make it possible to claim Alliance gifts with one tap or click? We've held off from introducing a one-tap feature for Alliance gifts. We hope to give Alliance members a chance to take note of who donated the gifts. However, we have recently noticed some special events grant a large number of gifts, making it inconvenient. In response, we're going to give an open 10x button. All right, reduces the number of taps. Will you make it possible to log in with multiple characters at once in the PC version? I don't know why they would do this. This to me is astronomically confusing, why they're basically institutionalizing multiboxing. But in order to make the PC version more convenient, we're planning to introduce a dual login. We are going to let you multibox, allowing players to log in with 2 characters at the same time. I don't understand this, actually. At the same time, we want to ensure this feature is not, it will be used maliciously, 100%. Or even not maliciously, but like the meta is going to be using 2 accounts at the same time. If we detect a player is taking part in actions such as rallies, gathering, and resource assistance that affects the game balance, we will suspend their characters and devices. Yeah, I don't understand this. I genuinely don't understand this at all. I don't know why this is like, it feels like we're putting multi-boxing in the game, and anyone who plays honestly on a single account is just going to get punished if you're not multi-boxing. I'm like, the thing about gaming is that it's all about pushing the extremes, and this just like enables you to push the extreme big time. I mean, I guess to some extent, like, you could kind of already do this today, and they're just making it convenient to do, but like, I don't quite get that one. From here, will you add a union chat feature? We're going to add a union chat in update 120. What new gameplay events are coming up? This update is going to introduce Behemoth Raids. All players will be able to participate in matchmaking and launch a raid against the current season's Behemoth in a raid instance. Unlike Behemoths on the world map, Behemoth Raids will be easier to take part in, and players will only be able to deploy 1 legion to the raid. So this is kind of like a dungeon finder from World of Warcraft. I think this is an interesting idea. I guess it's kind of like Soroli in Rise of Kingdoms, where you queue up for a boss and everybody does the boss and you get some rewards. So it's not like too surprising they would do that. And yeah, you have a lot of players that either don't want to or can't make the time to sort of attend a Behemoth raid. So making it easy for everybody to experience the Behemoths, I think is not a bad thing. I think that's good. They're also going to be introducing a treasure map event. Unlike the existing gameplay where you must gather 7 treasure map fragments and find the treasure, the event will grant treasure map fragments for completing quests, which can be pieced together to unlock clues, which will lead you to the treasure's location more quickly. Gameplay details and event information included in the update, so stay tuned. Will you add new factions? We are in the early stages of adding new factions. Let's go. Flying infantry, I originally really wanted, but now I'm kind of like, wait a minute, but I mean, the whole point of infantry is that they physically block your location. So like, what do flying infantry do? They could ultimately be like bruisers, like big damage, and pretty tanky, but don't block location. That could be a thing. I don't know. This design process includes content such as new starting heroes, combat units, faction bonuses, as well as ensuring that the new content is compatible with existing factions. So it could be a while. Yeah, I would not expect this for like a year, man. And there you have it. The Q&A with the developers. I think there's some things in here that are really hype. Obviously, the bit about the war pets is kind of like, I don't know, man. It's hard. Yeah, I won't revisit the whole war pets thing. But I think I would really look at that if possible. But these changes are really good. I think the game is heading in a really, really good direction. And like, if I could offer my thoughts around like what should the game do, I would say start with the community. Truly identify what is the unit of community that matters, and then build literally the entire game around that unit of community. In my opinion, that unit of community is a union, okay? Two alliances. So the whole game should be optimized around the gameplay experience of a union. My 2 cents. If you enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here. Consider subscribing. If you're looking for more information about my Season 2 and how that's been going, I'll have a playlist where you can see from sort of top to bottom everything that's been going on. Alternatively, if you want to see the last Forge of Light that I did, I'll have a card in the end screen right over here in just a second.